Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the CSX Bennett subdivision. It's officially getting into train season here in Michigan now that the temperatures are cooling off, and started to work back on the layout and wanted to show you guys a few of the things I've been up to. So I've been working on the town of Parkersburg, which is right here, and then the two adjacent industries, which are Tetra Technologies and Silicon Processors Inc. Been working on both of those. I put the tracks in, and then also I had a transfer switch installed that required me to cut out some backdrop material, and then we started to put down some fascia around the farm area. So I'll give you a tour of those. So this, if you guys recall, is where I used to have the backdrop nice and tight up against this circuit breaker, and that's why I painted the lower half blue and the upper half white to kind of match the backdrop. We decided recently though that we want to have the capability to plug in a generator to power our house in case of a power outage, and this was the best place to put that. So I ended up cutting out a fairly large section of the backdrop here so they could have room to do, route their conduit and everything, as well as to mount the breaker panel itself. I haven't decided yet if I'm gonna create one large box to go over both of these that I'll then paint blue and white, or if I'm just gonna actually paint this one blue and then the gaps all the way around it and the conduit blue. Feel free to let me know what you guys think if you have an opinion one way or the other. I guess one benefit of just painting it as is it looks kind of industrial and chunky, and there will be an industry below it, so maybe it kind of fits the theme, but it might also be a little bit distracting. If I build a box though, it's cleaner, but it would definitely jut out a little bit into this area because these are two pretty deep boxes and I would need to go down far enough to cover it, so it may eat a little bit into the height of some of the industry that I can do over here. But anyways, that's the background cutout that I've been working on. I also, like I was saying, I worked on both of the industries, not too far on either of them, but I did, let me take this off here for a minute, but I did go ahead and permanently mount the siding here. So I did the transition in height from roadbed height down to the actual base level here, and then I got the siding. It's probably big enough for like 7 or so cars, but on a typical operating session there'd probably only be like 5 there to begin with, and then I just put a little bit of a curvature at the end here just to make it look a little interesting. I'm trying not to be completely straight with all of my industry tracks to give just a little bit of visual interest. One thing I did want to share is in this area, so I came up with not sure if I took this tip from someone or if it was just trial and error, but a few months back I found a good way to make transitions from roadbed height down to like the lower industry height just right on the table itself. And so there's a product by Walters that I use. Again, if I stole this idea from anybody, sorry guys, I don't remember who it was. But it is the Walters? Nope, it's Woodland Scenics. So it's the Woodland Scenics incline decline starters, and they are the 2%. So they're basically just these little flimsy pieces of styrofoam, but they're nicely cut so that you can go around whatever radius you want, and they go all the way from absolutely wafer thin all the way up to much thicker than you'd ever need for your roadbed. So I usually end up breaking off like the first 10 or 12 pieces to get myself up to a standard Midwest cork products height, and then I just kind of do a little bit of sanding and cutting if needed to make it fit a little bit better. But that's one product I wanted to share with you guys who might be interested. So that's pretty much all that's going on with Tetra Technologies. I've also got some things going on in the city here, or the town itself. Do a little bit of a zoom in here. You can see that there's a few new kits here that are yet to be built. This is just a mock-up. I wanted to go through everything and make sure that I had enough room before I committed to making anything more permanent. There will be some, partially cut out buildings like right up against the backdrop that won't be able to be a full building, and then there'll be buildings like this that are actually full and projected out all the way. So it'll be kind of an interesting combination to get the most out of the space that I can. This picture over here is, even though I call, sorry, backtracking a bit, even though I call the city Parkersburg because of the two industries that I showed that are in it, I'm actually kind of modeling it after St. Mary's, West Virginia. So for anyone who doesn't know, this is a modern day CSX layout that's set in West Virginia. So this is the actual street running scene that's in the city of St. Mary's. And there's quite a few videos of it on YouTube. There's a fairly main line that runs through the center of town, and there's a lot of really cool shots of that. So I wanted to get some sort of a scene like that, and I figured, I can't really run my main line through there, just it wouldn't make sense operationally. You'd have to slow down pretty often during an operating session just to go through the town, and then the town would just constantly be full of trains, and there wasn't really space to do it justice. So what I ended up doing is making this actually part of the industry. It's a switchback for the industry. So there is clearance to back up all the way to there, where I have that picture taped up to the wall. And then there's a switch right here, and there's room for an engine, my largest engine, SD40-3, and 3 cars over that way. I can limit that artificially to be a little bit less and make it more of a switching challenge if desired for operating sessions, which I might actually do, but I want to see how things go first. And then this siding runs back to this industry over here. And this industry is Silicon Processors, Inc. It's another one that's local to Parkersburg. And it's not super prototypical to have 2 completely different switches coming from 2 completely different directions for one industry. But this was a pretty cool industry. It already had a couple sidings in it, and just to provide some additional interest, one switch comes off the main line this way to supply the industry, and the other one comes off right where we just talked about and has the switch back. A couple interesting things about this industry. So this is an overview of it. This is the chemical facility, Tetra Technologies that we just talked about over here, and then everything to the right of it and on this side of that track right there is all this industry. So they've got quite a lot going on. They've got a lot of piles of aggregate. They've got some warehouse space, some cranes, some different, a lot of different equipment and things like that. So it's pretty cool. There's a lot going on there. And they've got some cool old switchers, lots of, super rusty old hoppers that I'll eventually want to try my hand at modeling. They've got a place for unloading boxcars right here into their warehouse space, as well as a place for unloading from below or loading from above some of these finer pellets and chemicals and things like that. They're not, from what I can tell, they're not super specific to only one type of aggregate. They deal with a whole lot of fines for, processing and chemicals and mining and all that good stuff. But what I've got going here is just, a few of these, couple of pneumatic trailers laying out here, a semi truck supplying my quick mock-up of a building. This is totally just a filler, and obviously so is the Atlas box. A couple piles, just representative stuff to kind of get the vibe, but a couple piles of aggregate there. I'll definitely make those bigger in the real thing, so that'll be fun to kind of make up some aggregate piles. That's pretty much what we got going on over here. Just give you guys a little bit of a different view here. Down the whole way into Parkersburg. This is another one of those places where I just did that little transition, like I was saying, to the lower height. And they take, kind of a lot of different types and sizes of hoppers, as well as some of the smaller box cars. I wanted to leave room in case I want to do a little bit more interesting traffic on operating sessions than the real industry has, so I did make sure to provide a little bit of extra space and capacity for cars. But that's how that's breaking down right now. And then we'll hop back into the downtown area. We can go through a couple things there. So West Virginia, modern day, they have a lot of dilapidated little towns, which is unfortunate, but the the architecture and the craftsmanship in them are absolutely beautiful. So a lot of them were built during the coal booms, 1900s, early 1900s, late 1800s, depends on where you are. Some of them are absolutely huge, beautiful old towns. Others are much smaller, just depending upon what railroad or what mine area they were located in. But I was really struggling. I was playing around with a lot of different kits that I had, some pre-built buildings that I had bought used at train shows, and I couldn't really find anything that was fitting the architecture and style of the areas that I liked in West Virginia. A lot of the kits looked a little bit too fancy. Like here's an example of it's kind of in rough shape right now, but this is something I got at a train show for $10. This is what they call it, Merchants Row 1, I think it is. So pretty fancy. They got the gables and all that stuff. They got the different uses of marble, and it's painted up all nice. But this just really doesn't fit what I typically see in the areas I want to model in West Virginia. So did a little bit of digging, was considering scratch building and other options, but I ended up finding from Cornerstone, which is Walther's, two newer versions of Merchants Row. So this is Merchants Row 7 over here, and this is Merchants Row 6 over here. So the style is much simpler, like I was saying, much less fancy. It matches that older, just bare brick style. Still, very high quality and aesthetically pleasing, but it's not a bunch of marble and pointy designs and architectural features. It's more simplistic and it's designed. This is also an interesting one too, because so Walther's does give you a couple of different building fronts and sides for these within the kits, which I didn't realize at the time. But if you pick this one, you actually get like the the shop owners have replaced the brick facade here, or they've gone over the brick facade with some metallic siding, and they kind of changed some things up here. So it definitely represents like the transformation over time of these classic old buildings into something a little bit more modern, which I thought was pretty cool. So those are the two kits that I've got over here and over there. Obviously I still got to go ahead and build those, and then I will have to cut the roof out of this one to fit the pipe for my sump pump, which is going to be a little bit of a pain, but I'll figure that out eventually. And then at some point I got to kind of get together a color palette of different brick tones and siding colors and stuff like that, so that the overall theme and color palette of the town kind of matches reality. These are like really good examples of what you could have this look like, and I've seen some examples online where people did it a little bit differently, but I don't just want to have them look like exactly what Walther's provides. So more to come on that. I do really like doing the hand painting though of the building, so that'll be cool once I get into that. I'm thinking as of right now, just based upon again what I see in the small towns, this would be either a convenience store or a liquor store or something like that. This would probably be a bar back there. This would be a small inn or hotel or something, and then these would be maybe half or 2/3 would still be in business, just to kind of get a good look for this town. But a few of these businesses would actually be closed up. They'd either be empty or they'd have boards over them just to represent what you see in the area. And then down here, down here is the classic old kit from Atlas for a 2-unit station platform. I'm actually thinking about using this as what ends up permanently living on the layout, because it looks very, very similar to a station that I saw in Montgomery, West Virginia, that I was thinking about either scratch building or probably just designing up in 3D printing. It had some unique, shape over here, but I took some measurements, and I think I actually probably can just take this Atlas kit, much quicker to source, paint it up to be about the same paint job, make a little, try to get the colors right, but make a little one of these sheds over here, and then do the black railing similar. And I think it should get me, 80% of the way that I want to be towards having a realistic station without having to spend too much effort. So I'm probably going to order up another one of those in addition to the one that's already built, just so I can build it a little bit better and be able to not have this bottom base attached to it, because I am going to build a kind of a separate raised station platform area here. I think that's pretty much all that we got going on in the town itself. I will show you one more way I'm planning on building that, but before I get into it, I kind of want to take advantage of as many opportunities that I can to represent some of the landscape of West Virginia, where there's a lot of hills and things. So coming out of the town, it's going to the road will kind of quickly wrap around this building, not too harsh of an angle, but then it'll look like you're starting to go up into a hill, or a holler as they call them, the valley between two hills. And hopefully these are just representative trees. Everything's a mock-up at this point, but hopefully the tree cover will be a little bit taller. I'll be able to get some sort of a printed backdrop of a road there. And then I'm hoping from the position that, the camera's in right now, when you look that way, it'll actually look like you're traveling on the road. But I know it is a little bit more difficult to do when the road is on an angle to the backdrop, so we'll have to see how that goes. The last thing I wanted to show you with regards to the town itself is there's going to be a lot of little details that need to go into this town here, and over the months, or realistically at my speed of work, probably over the years, I will want to put in lights and figures and interiors, and those are not things that I want to all do at the same time, because that's a lot of time to all focus on one area of the layout. So what I am thinking about doing to kind of save my back and to be able to remove things and work on them as a group is I wanted to create a cutout of this whole area behind the track here, and then this whole area in front of it. So what I ended up doing is after I kind of traced out the widths of the lanes and where I wanted curbs to be, made sure I had enough room for lane transitions and those parallel parking spots. After I marked up all those, I used tissue paper. Let me bring this over here. So I used tissue paper to trace out. I kind of removed everything out of the way, and I just set this down, and I would, crinkle the edge of it to kind of get a traced outline of the features that I needed to cut around, like, for example, the backdrop or the roadbed itself, and then, mark with pencil as I needed. And I was able to trim this. Sorry, it's a little close, but I was able to trim this to get a pretty accurate design for what I wanted to make a platform out of. And then I went to the same material as I made my backdrops out of, which is masonite. It's probably like 3/16 inch, don't quote me on that. But then I ended up making a little cutout of that same size and shape. So now what I'm going to be able to do is, rather than always have to be reaching back there and run into issues when I eventually fill this area in with a little triangle for yard trackage, I'm going to be able to simply build the buildings and map out the roads and everything on this removable piece. And then if I need to route wires and stuff, I can drill holes through this. I can tuck the wires neatly underneath, cluster them all together, and then just have some holes and little slots drilled back there, so that when I'm ready to put the buildings back in place, take them off the workbench, finish some painting, finish some interiors, whatever it is, set this thing back there. And that actually fits pretty decent. But set it back there, set it down, and then plug in a couple wires, and then it should be good to go. So that was one way I found to kind of save some efforts. And then I think the last thing I wanted to show you guys is what my wife and I have been working on in the farm area. So last I showed, we had put down some rough Sculptamold, got the landscape made out of foam. Now we've sanded down everything and smoothed it out a little bit, and we actually started to do fascias. So there's one fascia that goes all the way over to here into the corner. We glued and tacked this into place, and then we've got another fascia that goes all the way over here. So we've got the the air compressors over there, and I got my hose and everything, and the brad nailer. But yeah, we just put these in position, tried to match everything up as nicely as we could. I might add a molding to the corner here just to prevent wear and tear on these two flanges coming together. Not sure if I'll do that yet, but I'm pretty sure over time this is going to wear out and want to separate. And then we are going to fill in these little gaps that you see around the Sculptamold areas of the farm. We're gonna fill that in with some more Sculptamold and just kind of pull this scene together here, and then eventually we'll get to painting and applying ground cover and all that stuff.